Yeah, yeah. You'll be making me sleepy every time I look at you.
We are a go.
Oh,
All right.
yeah. Prayer.
Ready to go?
I'm shy. I'm shy. Are we recording? You can hear me over there? I think, well, before we always start off, it's always prayer. Prayer. We got our relatives here to help us say the prayer. And by the end of everything here, we'll all fluently understand everything he says. Fluently. And that's the point here, what we're coming here. So, or also to share knowledge, encouragement from the elders, you know. That's all. So, yeah. We get Dixie here to say some words here for us. Dixie Ozzy.
Yeah.
How?
Once you get back there.
How?
When do I do that?
After Wochaki,
Yeah.
So I'll say a prayer,
How?
and then I'll say a few words.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hitch it up. I'll contemplate. So I will speak just a little bit explanation on what my prayer was about. I asked Creator. I will speak English so everybody will understand in this beginning. Yeah, if you're gonna stream, I can stream? Yeah. Where is it going? Yeah. Oh. If you wanted the microphone. Oh.
And then if you just go by them, it'll catch it on camera.
Oh.
It's not on.
Hello. Give me the thumbs up, sir.
Don't move around too much.
Hello. Hello. So thank you for inviting me here this evening. I will speak English. That way everybody will understand what it is that I'm talking about. And it's about language and the difficulty of retaining the language. I said a prayer in regards to that. what Creator made me understand to be what the difficulty is. Maybe around year 2000, me and my sisters, we got interested in the language. We went all over Indian country talking about language, getting our language back. Somewhere around that time, we started our own homeschooling, and it was good. The children whom are adults today were able to learn the language, but keeping the language, retaining it is difficult. Somewhere around that time, after I think 29 or 2010, we came back from a language conference in Rapid City. It's around that time I had this dream. And think about this dream. Think about it as yourself. I will think about it. Think about this dream as it being you going to this conference way out west somewhere. You or I went to this conference. The conference part of it was over already, and we were all coming back out of the conference room. And while I was saying goodbye to the people that were there, and I remember I seen some educators from here at that meeting as well, or that conference. What I found interesting or caught my eye while we were saying goodbye, while I was saying goodbye to the participants there, I kept on noticing something on his table like this. As I was saying my goodbyes, I kept on looking here. After the final person said our final goodbyes, they're gone, I was curious what this thing was. Why I noticed this thing, this white paper. I opened it, or I picked it up, and what was underneath this white paper was my wallet, or your wallet, if this was you, if you can imagine this was being you. Your wallet is sitting under this white paper. What is your wallet doing there? You lost your wallet. What do you carry in your wallet? Your identification, who you are, who you're supposed to be. Who you are and who you're supposed to be and where you come from. That's important. Who you are is your tribe. Who you are is your name. What you are is your tribe. Where do you come from is your territory. That's who you are. That's your identity. That's what is in your wallet. So when I picked my wallet up, I was thinking, how did I lose my wallet? I put it in my pocket, and then I was searching for the bus terminal, because I was going to come home on a Greyhound bus. I was looking for that terminal, and I was asking around, where's the ticket office? They said you got to go this way and around that corner. So I was going that way. I came around this corner, and there was a big hallway like this. Way at the end, you could see the Greyhound bus. You could see the dog logo on the side. That's where I was going. As I was walking down this hallway, I noticed 3 individuals along the wall over here. As I was walking by these 3 individuals, I looked at them, and I can tell who can talk Dakota and who can't talk Dakota just by looking at them. So when I was going by them, I looked at them, I said, these guys can't talk Dakota, I know that. So when I got by them, all of a sudden I can hear them speaking the Dakota language. And I tell her this Dakota language is a beautiful language to hear, to listen to. That made me stop. And I turned around to them, these three individuals, and I walked up to them. And I started talking Dakota to them. Dewa nawa hadat kada. De Dakota ya apinach ungadewa hida. Ho. The one that was sitting in a chair and his two guards were on each side of him. Ho, he said, de Dakota mkiapshin kada. Naku tiata. Yeah. I told him, I didn't think you guys talked the language, but I heard you speaking Dakota. It sounded beautiful. That made me stop and come to you guys. And the one that was sitting down in the chair, he answered me in the language. He said, yes, we never used to talk Dakota, he said, but now we're able to. Even back home, our community, they can talk the language now, he said. So I asked him, how did you do that? What I thought to be a chalkboard in front here, he was going to show me. He was going to tell me how they regained the language. Just as he was going to explain to me, I got this tap on the shoulder. I looked, and here this big, tall policeman was standing there. He looked at me and he said, come here, I want to talk to you. And he went to the other side of the hall and he waited for me. While I turned around and I was walking towards him, I didn't trust this person, this policeman. So when I got to him, I asked him, okay, if you're the policeman, show me your badge. He smiled and he disappeared. That is what I saw. If you can see yourself in this dream. What is this that uncovered my identity that I lost or that I never had? What is this? This is a prayer cloth, a white prayer cloth. That's what this represents. If you go to a language school like this or instruction, and if you regain your language, you can regain your lost identity or an identity that you never had because you never had the language. You probably don't have an Indian name. You probably don't know where you come from. That is your identity. If you regain your language, you can find your identity. That's not me saying that. Without the language, you don't have an identity. That's from Creator saying that. Because He gave you a life to be Dakota, and yet you are not. So that's what this means. So when I went to those three individuals, and they're going to show me how they regain the language and retain the language, not only for themselves, but for the whole community. A whole community can do it. As he was going to show me, I got disturbed by this big, tall individual. Since 2010 or so, I used to call him the tall man. But lately, there's a name attached to that tall man lately. This individual was going to tell me how they did it, I got disturbed, or something. This entity disturbed me, took me away from being instructed on how to do it. Who is this tall man? Who is this tall policeman? That's the individual, that entity that takes you away from learning the language. How many students or participants do we have here? That's because this thing is at work. There's something else going on over there. That's more important than being here today. That's his job. He's the policeman. He knows your mind. He knows everybody's mind. When you think about learning the language, he doesn't want that. He will change your mind. He will disturb you. And that's just his job. He polices everybody, every Dakota. He polices. He walks around here. When you're thinking about the language and culture, he will disturb you. That's just his job. You have to overcome that. How do you overcome it? By prayer, simple prayer. Earlier I said simple prayer. And this. This is a prayer cloth. You know how to tie a prayer cloth. This is what this individual that was sitting in the chair, this is what he was telling me. He was going to tell me. You make a prayer cloth and you give it to Creator. Ask him for guidance. Ask him for him to look after you while you're learning the language. To keep this individual away so he does not influence you in any way. He does not bother you while you're learning the language. And when you learn the language, to retain it. To retain the language. That's his job, to make you fail. So instead of coming here to find your identity, to find a life, you'd rather do something else. You'd rather ride your quad out here. Or you'd rather go to the bar. Or you'd rather have a beer or do some drugs. We've all done it. That's just his job, to do that. You might be thinking of the language, but he'll put a thought in here. Well, language is not important anymore. You don't need it, in this day and age. He'll put those kinds of thoughts here. But remember, your language is who you are. You are Dakota. That protects you, especially against the federal government. Why do I say that? Because these rights that we enjoy, free health, free education, free housing, all these free things that the government gives us as Dakota Indians, speaking the language, practicing the ways. He gives us these things to enjoy, because that's the agreement. But you have to retain that. You have to be that. Once you lose your language, once you don't practice your culture, then they will determine that you're not an Indian anymore. You're not an Indian, therefore you're going to lose these rights. Free housing, free health, free education, and these kinds of free things that flow from their funding and all that. Now you're going to have to be like a Washichu, pay your way, pay the taxes, these kinds of things. So this is a protection against that. And where does this tall individual come from? He's been around for centuries, since mid-1400s. 1492, who came to our shores in 1492? Come on, you all went to school. Christopher Columbus, right? That's when our problem started. Because before Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, he was instructed by the Vatican, by the popes, Pope John Paul VI. His family name was Borgia. He had the idea. If the Christopher Columbuses of the 1400s, 1500s, when they find new lands, they're instructed on what to do to the people that should be living there. Firstly, they're to find out if they're Christians. If they're not Christians, you can do whatever you want with them. Firstly, try to bring them into the folds of Christianity. Put them in perpetual slavery. Take the resources on behalf of the kings and queens of Europe. You can Google this, the great teacher Google. Doctrine of discovery. Papal bulls coming out of there. These are the things that this individual, this tall man, he knows that you're to be put in perpetual slavery. Today it's slavery of the mind. That's where it is. Slavery of the mind. Today we hear great atrocities. Today, recently again. That's because we don't have the language. What's supposed to protect us as Dakotas? Speak the language, practice the culture, the prayer. That is your safety against this thing here, against the government. For fluent speakers like myself, I'm in my 70s, fluent, understand, speak it. There's not too many of us. Maybe 20, maybe not even that. And we're in our 70s, some are in our 80s, fluent. When language was first discussed here, they sent funding. This is before COVID. Since COVID, some programs were started here, but they didn't go too far. Because why? This tall man was around. This tall man was around. He's still around. It's up to you to keep him away. So, back then, the Vatican, the popes at that time instructed the discoverers what to do to people if they should find them in these different far-off places. So that was 1492, and the discoverers from England and all that, maybe 1500s were here. After the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, around 1800s, then what happened to the Indian people? Because the Vatican says you have to put them in perpetual slavery. Then programs such as residential school happened. Residential school. Introduction of a new religion called Christianity. To take language away, to take culture away, a way of life. By law. Intergenerational trauma is what they call it. From the first inception of residential school, the first inception of a new religion called Christianity. Intergenerational trauma happened. We were being killed off and we didn't know, slowly. Today, we're killing ourselves. We're killing each other now today. Because we don't have the language. We don't have the culture to thrive in. We don't have it. Because this is the policeman that ensures that it doesn't happen. That is what we're up against, my friends. An evil spirit, if you want to call it that. If I can go as far as to say the Vatican is evil, I will say that. They use God's name to subjugate us, put us in perpetual slavery. That's what's happening. And I'm not afraid to say that, because we've suffered enough already. We're killing each other now. Because we're not wowahichiwaniche. There's no more relatives. No more. So we start killing each other. We start harming ourselves. And that's all planned out. It's planned out to be that way. So how do we get out of it? With prayer. With retaining the language. Learning and retaining the language. Keep this tall individual that disturbs you, your mind, your spirit, while you're trying to learn. Keep him away from you by prayer. asking Creator, because He's the one that revealed this. Ask Creator to keep this entity away while I'm learning. That is what I understand to be. What our difficulty is as a community, to learn the language, to retain the language, to use the language. Because if we don't do it, somebody is going to challenge you. When the federal government sent funding over here for the language, they also had a questionnaire. How many people still speak the language? How old are they? And how many people know the language, understand the language, but can't speak it? How many are there, and what age group are they? And how many don't have nothing at all? The government knows when, if we don't do anything to revive, retain, regain the language, the government knows when the top 20 in their 70s and 80s, when they're going to die off. They know that. It might take 15 years from now on, might take 20 years, but the ones that are fluent, they'll be gone. Who's going to be left is the ones that understand but can't speak it. How long is it going to take for these ones to go? Another 10 years? So maybe between 15 and 20 years. If we don't do anything, this community will be without a language, without a culture, no identity. The government is going to come knocking on the door at that school over there. He's going to ask, how many of your kids here can speak the language? How many of your kids here can speak the language and live the culture? If you say no, you're going to be in trouble. Because everything is funding driven. Free health, free education, free housing, these free things that you enjoy. You can enjoy those as long as you're an Indian, a Dakota. What is an Indian? What is a Dakota? It's a person with a language, and it's a person that lives that language. That's what a Dakota, that's what an Indian is. We're not going to determine that. They're going to determine that for us. And if we don't do anything, that day is coming. Because that's all in a plan. You have to kill the Indian in the child. Remember that phrase? Kill the Indian in the child. Well, that's exactly what's happening. They're killing us. We have to understand that immediately, right now, today, in order to do something about it. But it's still working. This tall man is still working. Because how many do we see here? Hardly anybody. He's working hard and he's winning. So try to understand this dream and the message behind it. Share it. Because this is coming from Creator. That is what I wanted to share this evening. So share it amongst yourselves, your friends. How important language is. Language is what keeps the government away. It gives you a life for the future, for the generations. That is what I wanted to share tonight. You can chew on that and, let me know what you think, And maybe I can come back sometime again and speak on this very issue again. Hey, Chituro Mitakwip.
Just kind of like he mentioned something about the palpable, very real. Some of them are actually written on skin. So you can look into that on your own time. So there is, and you know, when we're talking English, actually, we're actually talking Ingla, which is a German language. And so the language English is a Germanic language, and the language itself is a very abrasive language. The tribe, the Ingla tribe that used to speak the language we're speaking, were a very violent tribe. They dominated all throughout Europe. And so we're trying to get away from that, a language that has history of violence. And we're trying to move towards a language that's rooted in the land, that's rooted in earlier before, when we first came here, we played metallark music from a metallark, just the sounds of the metallark. Our language came from the bird people. It came from the bird nation, and so we're trying to bring that energy from the land back into the home, and that's the whole goal here, and to remove the English from the home as best we can. And so I'm very thankful, kind of smirking to myself here, listening to the stories about the Vatican and their goals to. Really, it was to remove the spirituality from our lives. That's really the goal, and the spirituality that's in the language. You know, that's what we hope to bring back. And so I'm today is kind of like an introduction here, but I just wanted to, before I'm going to ask Tui Eleanor here to speak, but before I just wanted to say that to our relative here. For sharing those teachings here, and the goal of the world is to bring the Dakota spirit down, and this is what we're fighting here. We're fighting it, but we're not fighting with spears and bow and arrow anymore. Instead, we're fighting with knowledge of our language, our culture, and all of those different things. And so my job here is to help work with the elders and work on different ways to learn quickly. So by 6 months' time here, we're all fluent, and we even said maybe by the time this class is done, the youngest student that will be here will be saying the prayer at the powwow first day, like that. Let's make some goals here, and see where we want to be in the next. Where do we want to be in a month's time? And so different things like that. There's different scenarios. One moment you'd say, I know the language really well. Then you go to a moccasin game and different words there. Now it's okay, I don't know anything again. You think, I know all the words again. You're at a ceremony, Sundance maybe. I know all the words. Then you go to a family setting. Now I don't know those words and those ones there either. So each setting has different vocabulary to learn, different words to learn. And so the direction I know for myself that I wanted to go is the family home, and start from there, and also prayer, but also wherever we're going to go. But anyway, I'm to keep going on. But I just wanted to say Pidama, to hear that about where we're at and the direction where we're going. But I know Auntie's really ready to go here and share. Kind of, we decided, Pidama. So we decided that today would be kind of like an introduction, a little bit. After Tui is done, I'd like to share a little bit of a way to study a little bit. But usually I use like boards and stuff like that. We don't have it yet, but I know we'll look around for it tomorrow and try to get it going. But I'll share some things after Tui gets the chance to share what she wants to share here. She's got a bunch of different learning material here that she has here. So I'll leave the floor up to you. Oh.
I'm going to say a few words also. It was very good to hear H.H.E.R.'s talking. I've heard his story before, and I was rethinking it again. You know, every time I hear it, you know, it makes more sense as, you know, what his thought is in there, and, you know, and to work on that. So I too, you know, at one time, I forgot my language. I was very fluent. I didn't know how to speak English until I was sent to residential school when I was 6 years old. When I got over there, I didn't know what was happening. I cried most of the time because I didn't know anybody. I went with my siblings, but we were all separated when we got there. So it felt that they had left me there. And I used to, you know, walk around outside crying, calling them. And we all had Dakota names. So that's what I used, you know, the Dakota names. And finally, you know, my older sister came out and she took me back and told me, you know, not to go outside because it was evening like this. And I told her not to leave me and I hung on to her. But yeah, I said, I was telling her, I want to go home now. She said, we can't go home, she said. So, you know, and I remember these so vividly, just like it happened yesterday. You know, all of a sudden we were taken. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe they told us, but I don't know. So yeah, I was there. I was there for 10 months. When I came home at June, I didn't know how to speak Dakota. That's how fast it took for them to take it out of us. Of course, you know, if we tried to speak it, you know, we were punished for it. You know, your mouth was washed out with whatever soap they used at that time. So, you know, and I always said, you know, they washed the language out of me, you know, and I can't speak it anymore. So I just, you know, I went on to high school. I went to another residential school, and I knew how to speak English then, so. And then I went to Winnipeg to another residential school. I spent 2 years there. You know, and I was, you know, and English was my language after that. Until in the 80s, early 90s, I was a teacher, and they were looking for a Dakota language teacher, and they had asked me, and I said, okay, I'll try it, because I had to, you know, relearn the language. So I did. You know, it took a lot out of me. I had to ask a lot of questions. It's a good thing, you know, my late father was still alive, so he helped me, you know, how to say, you know, certain words and how to use it and all that. And he taught me about kinship, and he taught me about the values, you know, the respect, you know, like that, how to use them and how to live it. He said, if you don't live it, he said, your life will be no good. He said, you know, like my home won't be of no use if I don't live like that. So I'm always very thankful that he had taught me those ways. And now, I've done language for so many years. I started again right after COVID, we started, teaching the language. And at that time, it was with the daycare staff. We had it open to everybody, but only the daycare staff remained. So I just, went along. So what we did was we did a lot of like work, for them to teach the little ones. That's how we worked it. So when they go back to work, they would use the language that they had learned to the little ones, for things like Nape dujaja, wash your hands. Wanawa untapte, we're going to eat now. Or wapaha kichu, if it was in the wintertime, and put your hat on. Like things like that they wanted to know. So they compiled a list of phrases, that they wanted me to work on. And I didn't work on it on myself. We all did it together, just sitting around, and we did it together, so that way they would know too. Instead of me, doing all the work, I got them, to do what they can. So in Naka, I was talking to JC earlier. There is like a dictionary, like the alphabet in here. It's the Riggs alphabet. When I went to university to take the language course, that's what I learned from the professor, how to use, the Dakota alphabet. So I know how to read, and I know how to write it in the Riggs way, the Riggs alphabet. But I told my students at that time, we don't have to learn my way. What I want to, because, that will take them, that will take time for them to try and understand that and grasp it, because there's lots of little marks, over some of the letters. So I told them, don't mind that. What I want you to do is, whatever you hear up here, just write it down. However you hear it, write it down. It will be easier for you if you can write it and then you can read it. So that's what they started doing. They did it, how they felt comfortable with, instead of, trying to do it the professional way. So, so that's what I did, and a lot of the words, they can just write it down. And I'm kind of surprised that they're not here, because they told me that they were going to be here. And another booklet I started using was, this is from M.F. Nurk, and it's a lot of phrases. I think here the classrooms might have that. And this simple phrases, it has the colors, numbers, it has the introduction like, where a female will say that, and the man will say, like that, and then they would answer, and the female will say, So they have to be, very careful of that, because we have that female saying and the male saying. So I try not to use the male sayings, because I don't feel right about it. But sometimes I have to, because there's nobody around to to do that. And then it talks about, like the weather, it's raining, it's windy, it's a bad day, it's cloudy, and all that there. And then we have the months, and then we have the weekdays. Where are you going? Where did she go? What do you want? I'm going to the store, I'm going to get some milk, stuff like that. And then I wanted, and these are just emotions. Okay, the first one is Wachi Hanunia Chante Washte Nawizi Kokipa Chante Shija Ishtecha. And that's I was just telling JC, I said, that's me. I said Ishtecha. That means shy. So, but I wanted somebody to fix this up because it's all, used too much. And another thing I had used was this one, when I was teaching the language in 98, 99 at the school, the kids there, when they're about 24, 25, I'm going to read it out to you and tell me what the rhyme is about. It's a nursery rhyme. Witka tanka tio tibos dont dayanka. Witka tanka gachuch hichbaya. Wichashtaki owas naku shoakanki owas piapi okihipshni. Shika witka tanka. Does anybody know? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. But I did my best to, translate. And this is what they did for nursery Christmas concert at that time. So just little things like that, I had done. And I tried to look for some of the Christmas carols that they had, that I translated to, like "O Christmas Tree." Was he chunky, ihonia toya naji, like that. And I did what I can, just to, you can't really translate word for word, but you get as close as you can. Yeah, but those are the things that I had done in the past few years. I always say I've come a long ways, from losing my language to getting it back again. It was kind of hard. With losing my language, I lost a lot of things. Like I didn't care about anything when I was growing up in my teens, early adult years. I just didn't give a damn about anything. This is my life. I can do whatever I want. That was the attitude I had. But it started to change after when I heard about sun dances, the sweat lodges, and I went just to see for myself, and that's what changed me. I said, okay. I said, this is for real. It's not something that people just do just because. It's something real. He's up there, just like what Ozzy was saying. Our language comes from the Wakantanka. He shows us how to conduct ourselves with the language, with the values. He shows us who we are, the identity, like what he had talked about. And that's very important. without nothing in here, we are nothing. We have to fill that void that's within us, with the language, and also to carry a spirit name or Indian name, because that will make you who you are. Because ever since we were young, my grandfather on my mother's side, he was the one that gave us these names, because that's how he identified us, not by our Washichu names. He couldn't say them anyway, so he just, used the names that. So, and that's how I grew up. When I was looking for my siblings when we were in residential school, I was 6 years old, and I was calling out to them with those names. So, and then I forgot their names over time, and I had to ask them, what's your Indian name? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So, but we have to be serious about language. What Ozzy was saying, there's not very much that can talk and share and teach. There's not very much that are around. I'm 74 years old now. I don't know how long I'm going to be around. I'm not a well person. I have, a disease with my immune system. Anything can just pull me down. But again, Wakantanka, I talk to him. Make me well. Every day. Thank you for this new day. Guide me through this day. Just to keep me going. I'm not 100%, but at least I can still drive my car and get here. That's the important thing. If I want something in Brandon, I'll go. I said, the day when I can't drive anymore, I'll just sit at home and be bored. But we have to make use of what we know. I don't want to say, I'm not going to say these things because we're not supposed to talk about it. I hear a lot of things like that. Because, my mom said, or whoever, it's supposed to be just stay in the family. Okay, if we do that, how are other people supposed to know what's happening with our lives, with your lives? So we have to be able to sit and to share what we know. And I do that with the young ones. I tell them as much as I can. When Randall interviewed me, I was telling him, the language class is not just the language class. Sometimes at the end of the class, or I know when the students have enough, so what I do is maybe the last 20 to 30 minutes, I will talk about things that we should know. Like, okay, the protocols of Flower Day, the protocols of certain ceremonies, why our young kids can't be walking around at night. There is, a story to that. Why we can't eat outside, like stuff like that. Because this is how we were brought up, and and we want our kids to know these things. So, but that's all I'm going to say, because Vijay, like I can say a lot, but what we wanted to ask is, like the class that we have here, it's not very big right now, but, I'm hoping that tomorrow, there'll be more people coming. We have to remember to pray. This big man that he talked about, we have to tell him to go away. He has no business here. He probably is in here, but, I'm not going to bother with him. I'm not going to invite him. We just have to avoid that. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Grandma. Is my mic on? You can hear me? Hopefully do we have how do we know how many people are watching? Do we know?
I can check the.
Yeah, I just want to know how much to show off. Hey, depends on how much people. Hey, no, I always say I'm gonna give my heart, even if there's just two of us, one of us, or whatever in here. And I don't know all the language, but I know how to learn it. I know how to learn language, and and so I wanted to give an example real quick here. The word for brain in our language is nasu. And I always think about the word for seed in our language is su. Su. And so it's almost like as if that's where the seeds are, like that. And so it turns out, when we were listening to the story here, that tall man, if there was a big tall man, oh man, I'd like to move around. Do you think you can help me with that one? Okay, if I was to come up to, I'm not going to do this to all of you guys, I'll use my son here as an example, but if I was to talk to him, and if I was to approach him like this, there'll be a sense of anxiety that comes from that. There'll be a sense of fear that comes from that. And there's been times where I crossed the border here, Dunseith, and sometimes I don't even remember my name when I'm scared. What's your name? I was like, what is it again? Jace. You can't remember your own name because you're scared. And so one of the things that I'm wanting to do, and I think that's why a lot of people don't come to language classes, it's going to be scary. It's like, hey, you come over here and you tell me which language you know. Tell me, count in Dakota to 10, and then we judge you. God, that sounds crazy. Laugh at you. All kinds of stuff like that. That's one of the things we want to remove in the classroom is the fear.
Yeah.
That's our number one goal. And that's actually why we lit the smudge. Because when we light the smudge in here, it's symbolically we're trying to remove anything in the room that's going to make us feel negative. And because if we feel negative, and if I look at you in a negative way or something like that, I might make you feel afraid. And there's a science that shows that up right here, this is where the thinking part of the brain is. The frontal cortex. Now, this is a little bit of a psychology class. This is not going to be a psychology class, but this is just to understand what happens if we make each other afraid. This frontal part of the brain will shut off if I create some kind of a fear response. And a lot of us, we watched Waterboy, Mini Hokshira. We watched that movie before, Mini Hokshira. And when we watched Mini Hokshira, they were saying where fear comes from in the brain, the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata. That's the part where the fear comes from in the brain. So if I create fear, it'll shut off your ability to learn. So that's the one thing we want to do in here. Just remove all the fear. And it's a good thing in here today, we all kind of know each other, so there's not really much of introduction. We don't need to do anything like that. But hopefully, what we would like to do is for us to consider this a study group, where we're here to study our language together. And so I'm going to give you guys I want to give you guys an example of how I've been teaching the language. Like I said, I don't know it all. But I'm learning really fast. And one of the reasons why I wanted to move home to Sioux Valley is here so I can learn it more quicker. I want to be 100%. I said, I'm going to make a goal by maybe the springtime. I said, now that we're doing this, language is going to be my thing. That's going to be my whole life for spring. And then we'll have 4 or 5 new fluent speakers here by springtime. So if you guys can, I just want to give you guys an example, because we don't have anything to write things down. And, yeah? Oh, you can charge me up?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it died out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I was like talking for nothing, they couldn't even hear me.
I think the mic was actually picking it up though.
Oh, okay.
That's all I have to say about
Yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.
What would you say?
There we go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Man, when I was first trying to learn the language, they'd tell me, okay, west. To say west, wilch beatakia. Oh, what that big old word. Are you sure that's west? Why is it so easy in English and so long in Dakota? That sounds like a big old sentence. Turns out it is a big sentence. And so let's break that. So if you guys can write down, I don't know how you're going to spell sun, like Tween said, if you want to write it your own way, but how I write it is W-I. We, W-I. That's for sun. Sun. Now the sun in this particular circumstance is going to represent your thumb. We. So everybody look at your thumb. That's we now. Okay? Now write this word next down beside it. Yo. Yo. Y-O. Right? Y-O. Now this is not all one word yet, so you can kind of write them separate. I realize that when you learn Dakota, you're actually learning how to write in codes. It's codes. I go Brandon, not I am going to Brandon. I go Brandon. That's how Dakota is. It seems very primitive, but when you simplify it like that, it starts to make sense. So, okay. So now we have, so this word right here is going to be yo. We yo. So now you're going to do it like this. Sunshine. Sunshine. We yo. We yo. Sunshine. Okay? So the next word is khpe. Now how I write that is an H with a little dot on the top, and then I put P-E. Khpe. Khpe. But listen to that. There's something really funny about that. I'm going to write this really big for you guys. Pe. You notice I'm not saying pe. Pe. I'm saying be. So I'm going to show you guys this, and I'll show you guys the camera that too as well. That's how I write it, a P and a B mixed together. I made up my own language. And if you guys ever see me write that, that's pe. Because you're not always going to write pe. So if you want to give yourself a reminder, so we don't say shak pe. Shak pe, right? Pe. So it's a mixture of a P and a B together, right? You got that out there in the world? How many do we got watching, by the way?
It said 22. We have someone from standing now.
22. Oh, Chun, you guys just saw my dirty nails on there. I was cleaning the yard, so I got an excuse. Okay, khpe. Khpe. Now you're gonna hear this word when you hear wakhpe. Wakhpe means people say leaves, right? But what do leaves do in the fall? They fall. Khpe. Khpe is the word for fall, or khpa. Khpe or khpa. I'll talk about that later, why that changes. How come sometimes it's khpa, and how come sometimes it's khpe? But yet those both mean fall. Fall. Khpe, khpaye, right? Khpaye. There's a good example. Khpaye. Khpe. By the way, those of you that are out there listening, I think a lot of us in here, we're pretty good at doing because we all grew up saying kha. So we're all good at saying that now, yeah. But if you're struggling to say that word, give your little kid a bus, toy bus. And when he's driving that bus, he has to say, how that bus sounds. Have him play on that bus and make the sound. Go out and listen to the bus out here. The buses are driving around now. You're going to hear them do that.
Now later on, he'll say a ruyapi pretty good because he's been practicing making that sound. Those are muscles you got to work on. So this is why we don't laugh at you if you don't know how to say a word, because there's muscles you're going to have to work on to change that. And especially even sometimes you'll notice somebody say, I know Dakota, but I can't speak it, because there's muscles that are not being used to being used. So you struggle to use those. So, okay, we got sun, shine, fall. So we have the thumb is we, and then the next one, yo. And then the third one, khpe or khpa, is to fall. Now let's put those together. We, yo, khpe. Now that's where we are so far, right there. Now everybody, put your finger up like this real quick. Put your finger up, everybody. And then now go like this. Ya. Ooh. Ya. Ooh. So I just want you guys to know that if you guys see me do that, ya. Washte ya. It went good. How'd class go? Washte ya. It went good. It went good. Yeah. Or ya means to go to, right? Something that goes good. Washte ya. Went good. Goes good. Went good. So, ya. Ya. So that means this third one right here, this finger right here would be this is the word for go, or it goes. Yeah. Okay? Now, the last one, so that's the word ya. That's after khpe. And now we're going to do this one right here. Okay, here's my other letter that I made up. This is my new letter that I made up. It's a T and a D mixed together. This is Wakian's thousands class with me, so I'm going to ignore him. He saw this 1,000 times. But that's how I draw the T, because you'll know when we say even let me see. Here's a word, dayan. Dayan. It's a T, but it's also a D. We don't say tayan. Tayan washte. Tayan wa'u. Tayan. You know, we don't say that. It's dayan. So that's why I made up this letter on my own, and it's a mixture of T and D. I call them TD. TD. And so that word is going to come up in handy when you're going otunwe da. Da. Da is the word for at. At. Da. Da. And that'll be the last finger, by the way. We, yo, khpe, ya, da. We, yo, khpe, ya, da. And so now let's do it in English. Sun, shine, fall, away, at. Sun, shine, fall, away, at. Wiochpeata. 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 So now you realize, geez, all this time I've been trying to learn all these big words, realizing that there are a bunch of little words to make up that big word. To make up that big word. So I'll just give you guys another example. This is just an example. My goal here is to give you guys the ability to sit at home and study on your own, to study these big words. Because we're going to do one more example, but we'll do it with the word, a Washichu word, respect. This is how I learned how to do this. I realized that English is the same way. And if you study, actually, those of you at home, if you study how children learn spelling bees, you'll learn the language quick. Yeah, you'll learn very, very fast. So if you look like, for example, spect in the English language means to see. To see. If you say the word in the English language, it means to do it again, twice. Reorganize, repeat, like that. So when you say that, so you take these two words, and spect, you put it together, it means to see you twice. I see you twice. In other words, I acknowledge you. I see you. I respect you. In other words, I don't ignore you. I don't look away. I see you. I respect you, right? That's how you, if somebody's ignoring you, that means they don't respect you. So, Dakota, same way. So let's look at the word, for example. And then, by the way, I use this book. You can take words and break these words down anytime you want. So let's look at the word for town. Town. Now, I figured all these things out on my own. There's a song that that they used to sing for New Year's. They used to sing that. And I was like, how come they put an O in front of it? Omaka. Why can't they just say on maka? What does that mean? So when you realize that, they would say all omaka, all over, like all over the place. And then you start looking at the different words where that word O is there. You'll start noticing all these little symbols. So by the way, the word for energy, like essence and energy, tu. Tu. And see how I spelt that? I'm not saying tu. So again, right here, I make a TD, a U, and my ends, I make them, if I have to vibrate my nose, I'll make a little nose on there. That means my nose is going to have to vibrate if I make that noise. Yeah, Make sure your nose vibrates when you say that word. Tu. We're not saying tu. That's different, hey? You got to go tu. Tu.
Call that a nasal sound.
Yeah. Make your nasals vibrate on that one. Tu. Yeah. And I think French people have that. Je ne pas, je. Like they have that same sound. So if you're like, I don't know how to say that. Well, do you know how to say je ne pas lié? You do then. Is the word. Just don't put the j sound in front there. But anyway, the word for energy, tu. Yeah. Now, a long time ago, when we wanted to look for tracks, we would say we. But we is the word for blood. Okay? We. So, see again, you guys can look up these words on your own. You could look up the word we. And you'll find that word means blood. But long time ago, if you shoot a deer, or even now you shoot a deer, it leaves little drops, right? We, like that. So that became, later on, the word changed track, to track something, owe. So if you can see that word all over, like think about that word being all over, and then put the word we, that means like blood splats all over, right? But that later on, that got translated to the word for track, like a track on the ground, right? Owe. So that word is in here, otuwe. So when you're thinking of the word town, we can piece that together. All over energy tracks. All over. So when you go to town, there's tracks all over. They used to go to town and they say horse tracks all over, wagon trails all over the place. So it really made sense when they started calling town Otue. Oh, it makes sense. You know, all over the place I look, there's tracks all over the place. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's another example of how you can take one word in Dakota and realize that there's a whole bunch of other words that go with that. Here's another example. This is just the initial. Eventually what we'll start doing is start breaking down some of the words that you guys already know. Then you can realize, hey, that one word that I already know, I actually know 4 words out of that now. And so your vocabulary will go up dramatically real quick. So those of you that know West, most of you that know that word, now you know 5 words. It was 1 word, now you know 5 words on there. And then later on, you'll be able to hear something like ya, wachia. You know, they're Washtea. It's something that's, you'll start to figure all those together. Put them all together. But tueta, there's one more example I was going to give you. What was that? Here's a real good one that we should all know. And in the community here, we need to hear this in Sioux Valley. Because I know for me, I need healing. I'm glad there's a lot of people that are online right now. Our community, all of us, me and first, I'm going to be first in line to say, I need to heal myself. And what that means is I need to let something go. I need to feel good, right? And so here's a word that everybody needs to know. P. Everybody, kids will start laughing when you say that word. Everyone will start laughing. P. But you'll realize that this word is so important in Dakota. You're going to notice this one word P. And how I write it is just, it's not the PB, right? It's not B, it's P, the actual P. Now this is the word, earlier Auntie said the word wapia or pia. When they said they were going to doctor that egg, pia. So look at the word P means the word to heal. How do we know? What does this word mean, P? I can give you a real good example of it. Those of you that have a dog tied up at home, poor dog's been tied up all summer long, he's sitting there. Let him go. Untie him. That dog is going to go vroom, go running around and just booking it all around. He's going to come along. That's what you call P. Iokpia. Iokpia. When you're healed from something, that's what we'd say, pia. So if you took somebody sitting there, their legs are sore, they haven't been able to get around, and a medicine person comes and they pia. They heal, wa pia. I'll talk about that wa a little bit in another class maybe. But that word pia means you're creating a sense of joy. And so he's getting up and he's like, oh, I could dance. That's that P. It's almost like a word of healing, but it's also a word of freedom. Just think of that dog, right? How's that dog acting? How is he behaving? So you'll notice that word. I wrote that down earlier when Tui said that word pia. It means to really be joyful, in other words, too. You could look at it like that. Yok pipi. There's a good example to use that word down the road. So this is what I'd like to share with the community here. And there's a lot more examples of different ways where we'll be able to break down. UN, that's a huge word in our language. We're going to talk a lot about that word. Yaun, waun, umpi. It's UN. That one is a real important word in Dakota. Doked yaun. It means to be. It means so much, but we'll break that word down a lot because those are the words you're going to hear a lot. I'll give you one more real cool example of what I realized with our language. Okay, a long time ago, our grandpas, consider this, the language that we have came from Unchimaka. Kushimaka, if you want to say that. Unchimaka came from the land, right? So if I did this, I'm going to try and go around. I told this to Nan already, so he's excluded from this, and you can't answer this. But if I was to hit this, what sound do you think it kind of makes? Try and make that sound with your mouth. Here, do it on this wall. Let's try and make that sound. What kind of a Dakota sound can you make when you hit this? Any idea? What Dakota figured out that means, I'll just tell you. I'll just take the suspense out of the room and I'll just tell you. What Dakota used to say that sound makes is ga. Ga. So anytime you hit something, ga. Washte wada. Ga. Ga. That's the word for I like that. Hey washte wada ga. So if something's really awesome, you can say, how was language class? Washtek. Because so what does that mean, right? It impacted you, it hit you. Okay, if I was to put a piece of chisdi on the floor here in the middle, some people would call that kaka. Kaka. And actually, our Lakota brothers to the south, that's what they call their grandpa, kaka. First time I heard that, man, when I was down in Pine Ridge, I was like, you just called your grandpa Deuce? No, that's what we call our grandpa here, kaka. That's when I realized that word doesn't mean. It means something that has an impact on you, something that hits you, something you realized, you know? Yeah, and so that, or even a physical sound. Ka. So here, look, the word for our language, for our voice is ho, ho. Now, if you were to just make a noise without doing anything, ho, that's the sound that will come out. So the word for voice, ho, 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 right? Now, when we dance in our powwow, you look at the water has a characteristic. What does water do? Goes like this. Water is going like that. Now let's look at this magical word. Let's put all these three words. Ka, ho, voice, mini, ka ho mini. So they're impacting, and their voices coming out, and they're going about like water. So you could see these little codes that are in the language. Kahomini. Or even the word for this building, ominiche, mini. It's like water. They're all going around. Mini. So these are all little things that could help you bring more life to the language. It's not just empty words, right? There's meaning behind every sound that we make in our language. Very powerful to think about it. Hey, I got more to show you. Like I said, bro, once you get me going, you're going to have to be quiet. Stay here till 12 from the midnight. But
After you're done, can we have a break?
yeah. So maybe we'll put that there as a break for now, or does that work? I think we'll be here till 9. We got some snacks and stuff like that. And so maybe just let the community know, now that the community is listening, that when they come here, you know, you can have some snacks and refreshments and such. Yeah. Oh.
I need to get up and walk around.
Yeah. Mic check. Check one. Check. Mic check. 1, 2. So if we do with computer, if I was to share a video, would it be able to share on the website too if we hook that up, kind of thing, or would they just have to zoom?
That'd be the guy we'd have to-
Oh, he knows that. Yeah, yeah.
We would have to connect it to here, but if you do want to just show it on there, I can zoom this in on.
Yeah, whatever makes that easier. Yeah, yeah.
Did you want me to grab the lights or?
Oh no, not today. I was just curious. I was just, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, don't turn it off. We'll all fall asleep. Yeah. Just give me the action. Say action when it's ready to go. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay. I think we're coming up to about the last hour here, I suppose, here, coming up here. I just wanted to share a little story, a little bit of a story. I'm very, very interested in the history of the Dakota people, and of course everybody has their interpretations, their different ideas. But there was a grandpa from down south that I just sat and visited with. A lot of times, that's where I get the knowledge from. Is my friends, they'd be at the powwow and they'd be out snagging or whatever, and then I'd try and go hang out by one of the grandpas or something, you know. Hang out with the elders, and then they teach you things, you know. They'll help you understand things. And he had said that there was a story that a group of Dakota lived down south in Iowa area. I want to say, Joaquin, you can correct me on that one. Iowa, St. Louis area, right? Yeah. Anyway, wherever there's Dakota, you'll find mounds. Mounds, because that's where predominantly Dakota buried in mounds. And I do know that within Sioux Valley, there's still mounds that are out there. I don't tell anybody where they are, but they're still out there. And as far north as Northwest Territories, you find these mounds. And so these big amount of these mounds are down south in the Iowa area. So that's a lot of Dakota lived in those parts. And they said there used to be a band or a tribe of people down there, and at that time they called themselves Ikche Oyate. Now I like to break down that word Ikche a little bit later, maybe in the next class, because that word is so important. The opposite of Ikche is Aya or Wo Aya. And so I will talk about those two real important words tomorrow, if we can come together tomorrow, we'll talk about those words. And so the Dakota people broke off, and they called themselves Dakota at that time, which was ally or friend, however you want to interpret that. That's so the characteristic of the Dakota became friendly because of that, because apparently the Ikche Oyate at that time were fighting amongst one another. And they wanted to get away from that kind of a life, and they wanted a life more of peace. And I remember talking to Uncan Donald about his grandmas and grandpas. Describe your grandpas and grandmas from when you were a kid. Uncan Donald was born 1918, so you can consider how old his grandparents were. I said, describe them for me. How did they behave? How did they talk? And first thing I remember he said is, they were too humble. They were too humble. Like, what does that mean? He said, always just humble, humble, humble. He said that was a flaw in his opinion at that time, because, you know, they just somebody call them down, they don't say anything. So They could do a lot more for themselves, but oh, I'm okay. I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I'm okay. Too humble. That's what he meant by that. And so, but those philosophies and such, it came from our language. And so I know we talked about the language, the sacredness, and the kinship. So this is where I wanted to talk about. The kinship is really, really important. And all of us in here, we're going to be Tahashi, Dekshi, all of us in here will consider that Koda, relative friends in here. And how hopefully when we're all here together, that's how we're going to treat each other as relatives. But let's do our little language breakdown here real quick. Remember that word earlier for energy, tu. So if you guys can write that word down, but you guys notice again, I'm not saying tu. It's like tu. So there's a little bit of a mixture of a T and a D in there, what I got again. You got that? Trying not to get my ugly nails in there. Tu, yeah. And then, so again, UN, that makes that sound. And then the nasal N, draw that little nose on there, and you'll get that yeah. Sometimes you can say I always think of when you're going to say like dan ya, if you're ever going to say that, think of Will Smith. He's always practicing that sound. And so tu is again that word we would say for energy. And even the grandpas, there's some medicine men that used to say that tu, spiritually, it represents like even the mucus. So if you spit on the ground, that would be considered like even on Ghostbusters, they call it ectoplasm, right? Ectoplasm, but we call it tu. And this is the stuff that the medicine people, if somebody went missing a long time ago, there's stories of that here in the community. That's the cool thing about having language. We'll also share a lot of stories. I heard a lot of stories from Unka and them. And he said a long time ago a horse went missing. And so there was an elder here in Sioux Valley that had to find that horse. And here he said, yeah, that horse went all the way towards the rivers that way. He knew where that horse was because he can find the tu. Okay, that next word from this one is that word ka. Okay, remember, and so how I spell this one is it's a mixture of K and a G. Again, ka, like the ka hominy, like that, KG, ka. And so you can look at this in this circumstance. This word here is going to mean impact or hit, right? You can use impact or hit, like it has an impact on me. Hewashtewa daka. That has an impact on me in a good way. Hewashtewa daka, right? Like you could say it like that. Hewashtewa daka, ka. Okay, tunka. Okay, here is the most important sound in the Dakota language. The most important, and how I do it is that I just do a dot, an S with the dot on top. So what you're writing there is shh. This sound, oh my gosh, is the Dakota language in my opinion. This sound right here is responsible for our culture. Shh. The original, we even have a spirit that's what that spirit's name is. Shh. Its name, that's what its name is. But it's so old we put gung behind it. So you'll see a word like this. You don't have to write this one down. You'll say shh, and the little dot right beside it, and then you'll hear the word gung. You recognize that word from wakankada. Unkan, wakankada. It's to be old, to ripen, to ripen, to be old. Gung. So you could say shkung. Put that word together, it's a real old energy of shkung. So when you go out into the blue sky, that's what the grandpas used to call shkung. Because if you're an eagle and you're to fly up there, what sound are you going to hear? Shh. When you go inside the inipi, those of you that go into the lodge, When you pour the water on the rocks, so that sound is so important. It's the sound of nature. Also, like some of the animals that we call it wamakashkan. Wamakashkan. The animals that move upon on the land, wamakashkan. You hear them running away, playing in the grass. Little gophers and little animals, little creatures running around in the grass. Wamakashkan. Wamakashkan. We could break that word down the road. Some of the words you guys like to, these words we're saying, if you're interested in that word, circle it. We can break it down together, that word. Certain words that you're really interested in, we'll break those words down together. And so, we have 3 words here. Tun, ga, sh. Tun, gash. Right now, by the way, those of you guys that are listening on the video, please stop calling the spirits tunkash. Yeah. All over South, everybody is saying, we're going to go pray to tunkash. And it's like, it's tunkash ida. I'm going to explain there's meaning to each sound that you're making. If you say tunkash, you're taking a whole bunch of meaning out of it. So it's really, really important. And so the next sound, E. E on here. So we got tun, ga, and then the next one is sh. And the next one is E. Now those of you though, if I'm thirsty, imapuze, imapuze, imapuza. E means inside. You'd see within something, because even when you go to the sweat lodge, they'll say E nipi, right? E, ni is the breath that comes out of the rocks. Ni, E inside, ni, breathing inside, E nipi. And so, okay, tu, ga, and then the other one, sh, and E, and then the last one, da, or la, if you're Lakota. Some of you, those from Standing Rock, Hunkpapa, or whoever's listening, maybe there's some all over, different tribes all over. That's a good thing too. In Sioux Valley, there was about 4 or 5 different tribes. Lakota, Sisituan, Wahpetuan, Ihanktuan, all congregating here. This is why we argue over words sometimes. That's not how it's said. It's this way. It's this way. No, these are all different families. We got to honor each family how it's said. Some relative might say this. Some say made for lake. Some say bade for lake. Some say bale for lake. All the same words, and we honor each way of saying it as well. So this word da. Okay, this is the word you hear a lot of times now, and this is what we call our spiritual, is tunkashi da. You might even hear in Sioux Valley, tunkashi na. You might even hear it like that, tunkashi na. You might hear that. And so when you'll notice though, when every time you hear the word da, like if something's really good, how did it go? What's that da? What's that da? Da is your thought process, your opinion. Shichada. You know, it's your thought, what you think of it, right? What you think of that thing. So you could say, washte da, washte wa da ka. I think it makes a good impact on me, is literally what you're saying. Washte wa da, impact ka, hit me. So we can try our best to understand this word here. People now would say tunkashara means grandfather. Grandfather means grandfather. Yeah, could, definitely. You could look at it that way if you definitely want to look at it. But literal translation, energy that strikes. Now, if I was to say this feeling, that feeling that you get, how does it make you feel? That feeling. If you go in nature, how does it make you feel? Calm, yeah. Relaxed, right? So that's what that means. That's what that word means. So now you're going to notice, I'm going to point something out to you guys. This word right here, she, together, you're going to notice something. Compassion or calm within. Calm within. Now you're going to notice anytime there's a relative, you're going to see this word she involved. Tahashi, dekshi, ichepanshi. All of these she words, kunshi. How come that word she is in there? Because it represented what a relative is really supposed to do. They're supposed to make you feel calm. A relative. So they'll take care of your food, your clothing, your water. Are you okay? You hungry? You need this? You need that? They're always trying to make you feel calm down, calm, relax you, right? That's the whole point. When you go to Kushi, oh, are you hungry? She calms you down that way. Or are you tired? She might help you lay down, get some rest. But that's Kushi's job, right? So that word, she, you'll notice it all over our language words. So that word she, S, how I write it, you could write it S-H-E if you want to. If you want to, that's up to you. Like Tui said, however you want to write it, that's up to you. But how I write that is S-H-I. And so even, look at this word. When you use this word wa, it means something that activates it. Like, so if you put washi, I know a lot of you guys say wasi these days. That's all right. That's all right. I'm not going to judge you for that. Wasichu, I hear. But the word for washi, it's washi ichu for the white, when we say white people. I'll tell a story behind that later on. There's the original word for white people is washi ichu. That's what they called them. I'll tell a story about that later on, how that word came about. So fat, if I was to give you, if we go to the keg and me and Nan are sitting there and I say, hey bro, you want this fatty piece? And then he takes that fatty piece and he was like, oh bro, cho, right? Oh, it feels good. That good feeling that you get, that's how Kushi makes you feel. That's how Tahashi makes you feel. That's how Hicheshi makes you feel. All your relatives, that's their job. Their job is to bring you that comfort. So even you can look at the word hokshida. We'll break that word down the road too. There's meaning behind that word as well. So what I'm hoping to do is, I don't want us to look at the word kunshi and just say, oh, that means grandma. Kunshi, this just means grandma. There's much more meaning to these words, and it has a lot to do with comfort, relax, what a relative's supposed to be doing for each other. How to be a good relative. How to be a good relative. So this word right here, energy that strikes you in a compassionate way within is what you think. Tung, kashida. The energy that strikes you in a kind of way. And so that's why those spirits, what do those spirits say in the sweat lodge? Shh, shh, shh. If you go to Kushi and you're crying, you have a hard time, what does Kushi say? Shh. Ina, holding baby. Baby's crying. Same thing. Shh, 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 shh. That jingle dress. Same thing. Of course, it's healing. It's making that sound. By the way, scientists call that sound white noise. So it's safe to say that Dakota language and white noise go hand in hand. Yeah, even if somebody's sad, you'd say, or if you're sad for something, oh, shika, oh, shika, right? It's just to be in the state of, oh, and actually that's being Dakota. Even if you see your enemy, somebody that just doesn't like you, they're just shicha-eyeing you, just looking terrible at you, you're supposed to even say, oh, shika. Oh, shika. Because they're suffering, they're hurting. So being in a Dakota frame of mind, that's why in our rules, with the Chanupa, wa'ushida, to have compassion. That's really what that word for compassion, wa'ushida. To be in the state of, to be in that state. It's a very, very powerful place to be in. It'll heal you from your traumas. So it's safe to say that the language, Dakota language, can heal you from your traumas. Much more reasons why we should be learning the language. And so these next, so we'll be coming back here tomorrow. And what I'm kind of hoping for is my job, the way I'm looking at my job is to help you learn. I know Tui and I will be here. And so this is the idea. And so hopefully those that are online, and maybe we could even make a post about it. However anybody wants to learn the language, because at first I was going to say, let's do it through song and prayer. I'll teach everybody song and prayer. And I was like, well, maybe some won't like that. Maybe some says I'm a terrible singer. I don't want to sing. And so maybe it's a prayer. Maybe you can write down an English version of a prayer and then we can translate that. Maybe it's having a conversation with a child. Like one person says this, call and response. I say this, they say this, and you have a mock conversation. Maybe you want to do it that way. However you want to learn. Or maybe you even have a kunshi or a unkan with their recording of them that you want to just listen. You want to be able to learn how to listen, and not only listen, but say it too. I remember that's how I was learning. By the way, that's how I was learning with Dakota, with unkan Donald, because I would listening to Unktomi stories in the winter time, and he'd play those on tape, and I'd be listening to him. And I have no idea what I'm saying. Hey, Unktomi kaksiza hadawik chekchemani iya. I knew how to say that sentence for 1 year before I knew what the heck I was saying. I had no idea what I was saying. Eventually, I talked to Unka. Unka, what is kaksiza hada? You know, when something's cut on the sides of a hill, when you see a hill and it's kind of like a cut like that, and it says, okay, what is weak chekche? It's kind of like when you're staggering around. Oh, okay. Mani iya, he was walking, staggering away from his home. That's how I started learning. So if you can take a sentence here or there, practice that sentence over and over and over, because you'll guarantee when you take a sentence, babies will do this. They don't know what you're saying half the time when a baby learns a new word. They're going to say that until you say, hey, that's a bad word. Don't say that. Whoa, I didn't know what that word meant. I've been just saying it all day. But that's where you start, is you could start with maybe a sentence or something like that and repeat that sentence over and over and over. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk about, we had the meadowlark. Here's the big epiphany too that I wanted to share. This is my favorite part. The meadowlark is the original Dakota speaker. And before the sun goes down, I'm going to whistle. Otherwise, I'm going to get in trouble from the elders. So I noticed the sun is going down now. I can whistle. And so I was having a hard time teaching the language down south. And so I'd say, oh, mitakipi. Okay, to say, how are you doing? Doked yaun. Doked yaun. And so all of a sudden, everybody, doked yaun. Doked yaun. You know, and it's like, or sometimes they'll do it washichu se, you know, just like a wash. Doked yaun. You know, how are you doing? In Washichu language, you'll notice when they ask a question, they go high at the end. Are you okay? Like that, right? But we don't do it like that. We sing it. And the song that you have to learn, if you can, get used to listening to the meadowlark. And so anytime you can, go off on your side and learn the accent of the Dakota people. And so now if you could take a bird like that. We slow that down. Okay? Now say doked yaun he with that song. Doked yaun he. Right? Doked yaun he. Oh, now you sound like an old Dakota from the 1800s when you say it like that with the song. So a part of the language, because the reason why I say that, I don't like speaking because to me I don't sound the same like everybody else. I can say the words, but I don't sound like these guys that are talking up there. Well, that's why it's so important to practice that. how are you doing? Even say it like that. Practice talking like that. Most of us have wicked Sioux Valley accents anyways, so we can probably walk into it pretty good, because Sioux Valley accent is old Dakota accent. Yeah, it is the style of the meadowlark. So when somebody says Sioux Valley accent, that's actually a meadowlark accent. It's a bird accent. So something very important to remember. So we're working on that and sounds just to make sure that everybody feels polished. So when you go out and speak the language, you'll feel 100% that you feel confident, that I'm saying it the old way, how Kunshi used to say it, how Kung used to talk, right? And so that's what I wanted to share. This was my intro. And so tomorrow we'll have the board down and we'll be able to share a lot of the intros and such like that. I was going to tease you guys all. And I was going to have a paper up here. And I was like, hey, everybody, say this. Tatanka. Hey. Just basic stuff. Learn your numbers and stuff like that. They say we want to get away from that. No more numbers, no more colors. Let's get talking. Let's get speaking. Let's get conversing. Let's get understanding. But some of the things too, one of the elders that came in, when we go to the feasts, the flower days like that, all the things that the elders say up there, we should know those. We should know what they're talking about when they're up there. So to remember the speeches, the things that our elders talk about, so we can learn how to identify certain key words that our elders use. So I'm going to keep on talking all night, and I'm just wanting to open things up. And but I say this too. I'm still learning. I am still learning. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to Nan about. Those are the words that we should learn first. Taku ka, taku ka. What does that word mean? Say it again. Like words like that, right? That way you're not having to resort to English. Yeah, like you won't have to say English. So the words that you'll be using talking to the elders to learn, those are the sentences we should learn first. Those, in my opinion. So that way you can converse and you don't have to resort to English. Yeah. We choye kihe tokareaps. And like that. Like, how do you say that word? How do you say that word? Those are the words we should know. Like that. Cho, stay groovy. Hey.
I'm still waiting for you to tell that story about Washi.
Oh, yeah. Well, do we have time for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, and actually, those of you that are interested, I have a lot of recordings. I have different recordings and from different elders. I don't consider myself a gatekeeper, meaning whatever I have, I'm going to share it. I don't want to say, no, this is my grandpa's stuff here. You go learn from. No, whatever I have, I'm going to share it. And so if you're interested, I have recordings of our grandpas and our grandmas telling all kinds of stories, different ones. And also, I would like to hope to work on maybe a project where we can find the other recordings that were already made. Because a lot of recordings people came here to the community, recorded. They're still out there in the museums. They're still out there all over. And I know they're out there. We got to just bring them home. And so anyway, I know everybody talked about that word washichu. And over the years, some elder might say, what does washichu mean? And they'd say, well, it means takes fat. And it's so easy to come up with different reasons and why. But they said the first years, they never actually had a word for washichu. They used to just call them iashicha, the Germans, because they were the only ones that were coming to Dakota territory at that one time. Was the first flood of immigrants to meet the Dakota were the German people, and they said that winter was going to be long, and those washichu families. They didn't know that. They didn't know that the winter was going to be long. And so they, one night there was a kunshi, and she was washing otke. They were hanging up fat. dripping fat, over the fire. And they said at nighttime they'd come up and the fat would be gone. And so one of the elders looked and they saw a little kid from the Washichu community was coming to take fat, taking it off the racks. And then so Kunshis, they said, Shika, there's Dakota's compassion. So they started hanging more fat off every night. And so that's what they say, Washin otke manuche. That's what they'd say. They'd be stealing that. Manu is to steal. And they'd be always doing that. And so they say, Washi ichu. They started calling him fat taker. Washi after that, it's just, Muka said they started shortening that word. Washi ichu became Washi chu after that. And so it's, and I asked, I said, well, how come we say, some people would say Wasichu? What is that? I think that's the bottom of a boat. I'm not too sure. A bottom of a boat. Wasichu? Yeah, but sometimes you'll hear even words, and this is a time for us to correct all these things. I still have Tahanshis and people say Sicha. It's supposed to be Shicha. And so this is a time for us to sit down and to talk about all these words and what they really mean, the deeper meanings behind them and the stories that were told. But if you're interested, that story was actually recorded in when KODA first started. There had interviews going up here, and I have it. It's all in Dakota. And actually that recording in Dakota helped me learn Dakota because I wanted to know what he was saying. What were the stories, and there was no translations behind it. So every time I learn a new word, I'm going, what does this mean? What does this mean? Calling, asking what all these words meant. But you have to have kind of like almost like your whole world has got to change. It takes a lot of commitment. But I think if you have a strong support group, and I think if all of us coming here together, if we just focus on language, we probably wouldn't be very happy. But if we can focus on eating and laughing and coming together and enjoying ourselves, I think it'll go good. Yeah, and eating and that I'll stress that eating. Yeah, and then we'll eat too, so it'll be good. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful way. Dakota way is our teaching is we're supposed to accept and love everybody. That's the old way in Dakota community. Doesn't matter your last name. It doesn't matter how bad you were 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 20 years ago. Doesn't matter any of that stuff. We love and we help everybody. And that's what this is all about. And so I know even for me, I might say, there's a language class. Hey, who's going to be there? I don't know if I want to go, You have those kind of thinkings, And so we hopefully we can, as we're going along, people would say, man, just go and listen to stories. You don't even have to learn the language, Just go and be there. You'll feel real good about it, You'll feel good about it at the end of the day, because I know that's what Dakota used to practice, was to feel good, enjoy life. They all knew that life was short, and life used to be shorter for our warriors, 20, 30 years. So, man, you better get enjoying life quickly. And so that's what Dakota culture is about to me. And so I know personally for me, I'll be working with this book in a lot of ways. But also there's another book with the verbs, because I know we got to learn the verbs. It's really important. Yeah. Here's a real interesting word by the way. I always wondered, how come running ianka? And then later on I realized stone, you're hitting stone when you're running, and it's hitting like that. Ia is stone. Ka. And I was like, man, that's the hardest word to learn that. Like I'm running, you're running, we're running, they're running, how to say all those different things. So those are the ones that we'll probably work on is those kind of words. Yeah. So mawani, mayani, maoni, all those different ways of saying that one word on different ones. Wadoa, yadoa, undoa, all those like that. And so we'll get going pretty quick. So I picked it. Yeah. You can close off or anything, or we're good?
No, I just want to stress a little bit what Tushka was saying. You know, a lot of times, and I found this out, a lot of people do fear, and that's what he talked about, because we have this fear of being laughed at if we make a mistake. And Dakota people are really good for that too, you know, like we like to laugh, but there comes a time when there are certain things that you laugh at, certain things that you don't laugh at. You know, humor is medicine, but sometimes, a lot of times, we use humor, you know, in a wrong way. So we have to remember that. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons why I think, you know, a lot of our people don't want to come because, oh, what if I make a mistake? What if I didn't say it properly? And they're going to laugh. And, you know, and that's what I've been telling my previous class. You know, we're here to learn. We're not here to laugh at anybody. But if you want to laugh at yourself, you can laugh at yourself. But don't expect everybody to do that. So, and one of the things he mentioned too was the different dialects here in Sioux Valley. On my dad's side, there is Sisituan. And on my mom's side, I think there's a Bdewa Kunta, like that's my grandfather. Eh? And then there is Isanti. So we have those, you know, there's different families that say words differently, like what he was saying. And at the south end too, like they say some words that are slightly different compared to maybe what I hear from the north people or, you know, from up the hill over here. And, you know, and where we live, you know, words can be, you know, not a big change in it, but a slight, you know, very slight, you know, where you can still understand what that word is. So, and, you know, and this is one of the things I had explained to the class, you know, however you learned from your parents or your grandparents, however, you know, that word was said to you, you know, it's probably that way. I'm not going to change it for you. If you want to, you know, continue to say it in that way, it's fine with me. Because there's one person, you know, her father, you know, used to say things a little bit different. And I accepted that. You know, I'm not going to say that it's wrong. Because, you know, there's no wrong in speaking Dakota. As long as we all come together, learn together, with the compassion, that's what he was saying, you know, we can make things work. You know, waung shida, you know, have that compassion for each other and, you know, and help, you know, the person next to you. When you're having a hard time, ask your neighbor. And if they can't help you, you know, ask us, you know, we'll do what we can, you know, to help out, reach out. You know, this is what it's all about, helping each other, sharing. You know, we can go far. Like what he was saying, it's possible. By March, we can have people speaking Dakota, and I believe in that.
Real fast, too.
Yeah. So, but that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, we'll just wrap it up for
All right.
today.
Thank you, guys.
Session.
Yeah, and we'll be back tomorrow.
I used to watch these videos
live videos and stuff.